Welcome to episode 113 of the XRM Toolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with Andrew Butenko, a third-time guest to the show, about his latest tool, the Canvas App Watch PCF. This is a tool for Canvas apps. You put it on your app and you can dive into the values of your collections and your variables in real time and see what they are. So it's a great tool for debuggers, for low-code and pro-coders, both in Power Platform Canvas apps. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the XRM Toolcast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and Scott, I'll do anything for charity, Drill. Scott, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, we're still on that. We're still on the green hair thing.
Well, yeah, I've still got to get used to it. If I woke up, every day and saw you every day and saw the green hair, I'd be with it. But it's still
I've got used to it now. Would you do it? Would you? Well, if someone said to you, "Hey, look, we're gonna raise all this money for charity," would you do the hair coloring thing?
I don't know. I'd probably suggest something else, like drink alcohol or something. Have a beer.
Yeah, because you don't drink alcohol, do you? I mean that
I never had. I've had wine at Catholic Mass once. I about spit it back in the cup when I was like,
wow, yeah. So it could, anything could happen. Anything could happen. It could be
anything could happen.
And
yes.
I do think that if you were going to do that, Hamburg would be the right place to do it. It definitely has a party city vibe. But yeah, I've just got used to the hair now. So next week, week after next, I'm going to be at Build. So probably the week that we release this, perhaps. So I'm doing a workshop at Build and doing a session as well at Build. And so, yeah, it's going to be recorded. My session's going to be recorded and it's going to be live streamed as well. And so, everyone's going to see my green hair, everyone's going to be, maybe commenting, maybe not. I'm just ignoring it and hoping that it won't be a problem. But of course, everyone will be watching online. Everyone will be watching.
Yes. Yes. Everyone.
And talking of watching, I was just queuing that up for you.
How did I not pick that up? All right. Today's episode, we bring in a repeat guest, a great friend of the show, Andrew Butenko, a technical architect at Exalent Solutions, 14-time business applications Microsoft MVP, Power Apps, Power Platform, and Power Platform certified. Welcome back to the show, Andrew. How's it going?
It is going great. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Scott, for having me.
Welcome, Andrew. Yes. Great to see you.
There's a slew of things. There's even things that you have coming up that we'd love to have you on the show for, but you aren't quite ready to talk about that yet. So instead, we'll talk about what you've already done. So you'll be living off your previous glory, right? But recent glory, though. It's not like it's
you've been on fire lately. You've been loving seeing all the stuff you've been doing on online. It's been amazing.
Yes. Are you finding full-time day work? Is that why you're having all this extra stuff done?
We're a little bit concerned about you, Andrew.
No, actually, sometimes, all of us, for us, we are doing our daily duties like architects and developers. But sometimes you want to do something for fun. Like, Scott, you built this wonderful game on the using Canvas apps and PowerFx. This when you were driving the car, that was amazing. And I didn't know how complicated it might be until I started doing PowerFx. Or you, Daryl, you're like the father, almost the father of the early bound in the Dataverse world, right? Because like a lot of people I know numbers of people, I won't have that much fingers, people who I know who is using your XRM Toolbox plugins for generating early bound classes, right? So, and I don't think that you are paid for it either. So all of us are doing some stuff that either we're doing for fun or we are doing to make our personal life easier and contribute to community, right?
Yes. Yep. That's the story of us, the story of MVPs, right? So the tool we skipped over entirely. Scott gave the drop that was Watch, but it's the Canvas App Watch PCF component. And so this is something that could be very, very helpful and solves a need. So I guess I'll start with, how long did it take you to be working in Canvas App before you said, I need more than what's there? And then we'll dive into what you created and why.
So yeah, that's a great question, Daryl. And the long story short, I was super late for the party. I was super late. I believe, like 5, 6, 7 years late for the party with Canvas apps and PowerFx. If I'm not mistaken, the first time we saw Canvas apps, it was like 2017. 2018. I remember I was on the summit when it was presented, and like a lot of people still were thinking, is it a thing or not? It's not a thing. But like, I kind of like the concept, because you're just taking the canvas, dropping whatever you want, connecting to the data sources. But since then, I was super deep in development, so I spent my time building code, writing JavaScript, plugins, integrations. And because of the structure of the company, I had no chance to play with Canvas apps. It was like one time during, it was 2019, I did App in the Day class, and I played with Canvas apps and kind of liked. But after that, I abandoned it, put it aside, because I had stuff to work on, like code stuff. And I kind of was I didn't put any efforts in like understanding or doing some stuff in regards to Canvas apps. And luckily, early this year, I got a project where where basically the whole application that I had to work on was the custom page. So basically, a Canvas app built inside Dataverse, and that was my lucky chance. I started to learn quickly, and the thing is that application was built already, so it was built with other persons, so I had to quickly understand what person meant, what application is doing, why the data is going back and forth, and so on and so on. So I learned it, I mastered it. Now I can say that I know a little about Canvas apps and PowerFX. And I started to feel the huge gap, specifically when I had to troubleshoot. And because it's not my app, it's someone else's app, I need to understand what is happening in the app. And the most complicated part, I wanted to understand what is happening with the app inline. So basically, I'm running it, and that's pretty much it. The only way I can see is to put some kind of hidden table or something, and that was the only way to understand what the data is there. Because sometimes, when you're building collections or setting variables or doing whatever is required, this data is not visible on the canvas unless it is bound to some tables, collections, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, that's always the first thing that I will do in any complex app is you have like a hidden gear icon, in the top right or the bottom left, or which turns off if you're, when you're not in debug mode. And it takes you to a screen, which then has just basically data tables of loads and loads of stuff, debug stuff, where you just have this collection is bound to this, and then this little grid here with all these different text boxes full of like loads and loads of, it's like every app that you see has got that, because people go to the little watch window on the left hand side, and in your blog you've got like, I think the first thing on the picture you show is like a little box around a question mark, just showing that you can't actually really see very much in the watch window built in. So you have to build your own screen.
Yeah, something like this. And it was the big challenge. And it was a big challenge, especially when you are troubleshooting something, let's say in production, where you have like the managed version app. You better not touch it. So I started to think, okay, How usually are we doing the this kind of troubleshooting in, let's say, in classic C# application or in like JavaScript application? So basically, what are we doing in browser? And I started to like get an idea that maybe it will be a perfect fit for PCF controls. And what I know, because I built a bunch of PCF controls, I know how they work. And I decided, okay, I will give it a shot. I gave it a shot, and during, I believe, like first few hours, I came up with working prototype, and in the next few hours, I got it working and verified it's working in real application.
So take us through what you do to use this control foot to do debugging and diagnosing issues in your app.
So basically, the main idea behind the control was to visualize the data, because when we're grabbing the collection, it can be multiple, like information that you're getting might be multiple hops away. So you're in the collection points to another table, you are drilling down, you want to see what's inside, and you have another one lookup and you want to drill inside, or you have inside that record, you have related collection that you want to expand, like we have in watch window. You're just clicking plus button, it expands, and you see all the data with all the types, like what is it, string, int.
You're talking about the watch
null,
window inside
whatever.
Visual Studio or VS Code.
Yes.
Or inside the browser.
So basically, just inside the browser, you're basically just clicking plus to expand, and you see what's behind the collection, the record, or whatever. So how I implemented, because I was limited with the frameworks, I just came up with the idea of popping up window that will display the grid with the possibility to expand. And as input parameter, I used the input parameter that, if I'm not mistaken, is available specifically for Canvas app, where you can put like generic object. So pretty much anything you want, you can put inside. And it basically consumed the object that contained it's possible to name the properties the way you want and bind it to those fields of that object. You can bind either collection or object or any kind of variable. And inside PCF control, I'm getting this object, and pretty much I'm just parsing and displaying it with the whole hierarchy, understanding what we are looking at. Is it string? Is it number? Is it collection? Is it other object, etc.? And the whole process is iterative. So when it sees another one, something that is not simple object like string, daytime, number. So when we see collection or we see other object, other type of record, we're just jumping inside, and the whole process goes again and again until we are reaching the bottom. And the process iterative, it goes, parses, and displays the whole tree of all the objects that are available.
Do you have any infinite loop issues with that, where an object contains a reference to another object that contains a reference to itself? Or since you expand it one level deep, you don't worry about that?
That is a good question. I don't remember I have ever had that in my attempts. So you can try to break it.
Yeah.
My kids watch a YouTuber. All he does is try to break video games. So he'll just add in as many possible things that he can to overload the system. He's only supposed to have like 2 cities, and he creates 5,000 or whatever, and it just crashes the system. And some of the things are just like Roller Coaster Tycoon, having everybody the whole line go through the roller coasters, you're killing everybody as they walk through the line because the roller coaster is going through the line. It just silly stuff like that. So I was just kind of getting in that mindset. How can I break Andrew's code?
It reminds me of the joke, the difference between the software developers and quality assurance engineers. So
Yes.
how let's assume that we have a program, walk in the bar and order a beer. So software engineers go into a bar and orders 1 beer. The next loop, software engineer walks in the bar and orders 2 beers. And that's pretty much it. Test case is closed.
It's good.
How quality assurance engineer will do the same? Quality assurance enters the bar and orders 1 beer. Succeed. Then they orders 0 beers. Then minus 1 beer.
Yeah.
Then they order lizard.
Yeah.
Program blows up.
Or they sell beer. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They order drop
always
table beers.
Little Bobby drop tables
Yes.
from SKCD. Yes.
It's so true.
it's,
I mean, and that's the thing, isn't it? When you design something to work in a particular way, that's naturally how you're going to think about it. It's like, have you seen that video about someone doing putting shapes in the shape sorter? You know, they take the circle and they put it in the circle hole, and then they take the circle and they put it in the square hole, but then they keep on putting it in the same hole, and it's the person who designed it just kind of despairing about somebody using their software incorrectly. But it's as software developers, we spend a huge amount of our time trying to make sure that the software we develop is going to not blow up. But it still amazes me how there is always a scenario that we don't cater for. I mean, it's one of those things that you can test and test and test as much as you like, but there are always going to be bugs. But what's interesting, I think, about PowerFx is because it's declarative, and it's so, there is much less of that imperative code, that kind of sequential code that's executed in a particular order, because it's much more like everything's live. It's much more like Excel. Excel spreadsheets, you don't tend to break. You don't get Excel spreadsheets blowing up, and crashing. Yes, the calculations might be wrong, but it's much easier to see those calculations being wrong because you're actually validating that the expressions you're doing are correct. And so I find that that's the same with PowerFX, because you're in programming it imperatively. It's much less likely to blow up under some circumstances. I mean, how did you find the transition between, other than finding out that you needed to create this watch component, how did you find this transition going from all of that code, that imperative programming that you were doing, plugins, C#, etc., JavaScript, TypeScript, into this declarative PowerFX world? Did you find it difficult, or did you find it easy?
Okay, the interesting way of thinking about it is that I tried it multiple times and I failed every single time. So you all know Joel Lindstrom, right? So because Joel can build those applications, even he is now like super manager. I don't know if he's still building applications or he's just managing people, but he knows how to do it. So for multiple times I went to him and asked, Joel, I just don't get it, how to make it happen. I just don't understand how it works. Joel told me, okay, consider this application, consider those formulas like Excel formulas. And I still failed. But you know what really helped me? Okay, I will just.
Andrew, tell us, what was it that you really helped you?
What really helped me is first I had to understand how React works, and the way how React works, specifically bindings, properties, and states. That was this eureka moment, exactly. So when I started, when I overlapped it, yes, now I get it. And I started to learn. And yes, I can say that for me, it was how it's called. It's called plateau, plateau learning. I was learning super slow. But after this eureka moment, boom, and I started to understand pretty much everything, how it works, how the binding works, how the formula works, and that was pretty much it.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because I've spoken to many people who've had that same experience, and I mean myself included as well. I think because when you come from a software engineering background, you understand sort of various different patterns of data binding and things like that, and and it's very easy to assume that PowerFx works in a particular way because that's the way you assumed data binding, has worked. It's been worked imperatively. But yeah, like, when you look at frameworks like React and actually Canvas apps were built using Knockout JS and Observables. And so, I'd done a lot of stuff with Knockout JS. And when you think about it in terms of that, observables, it's like, well, you create dependencies when you've got an expression, and those are the observables, and therefore when those observables change, it means there's a dependency on that expression, and it's a computed expression, and therefore that expression needs to be reevaluated every time any of those observables change. And that's how that kind of event tree can work. And I think it's very useful to be able to then use that knowledge to then work out why something doesn't work the way you think it's going to work. Because and that's what's interesting about your watch component, because have you found, because I noticed in your example you use that object that you pass in, so you've got I think you've got like a variable and an expression in that watch, so you're basically declaring the variables you want to watch. And so what you're doing there is you're giving the PCF framework a set of observables, so that if any of those observables change, then that object is going to get reevaluated, and therefore there'll be an on-change event will be passed down to the update view, and you'll be able to re-render the change. But of course, if anything inside of those objects changes, so for example, if you've got an object with a variable which is stored in an object, and you've got any variables below that object that change, then you need to make sure that the actual root variable is actually being changed, because you actually, rather than creating a new instance of that, because if you create a new instance of the variable, then that's not necessarily going to trigger your observable to change. So there's some weird bugs that I find that creep in if you think about things in terms of that imperative way of things. But if you have to think about, where in my object tree do I actually want to bind to make sure that I listen to the correct observable events. And that was the thing that really struck me, is when in your watch component, is that I think that can be very useful for teaching you how that immutable behavior and observable events change. Did you kind of find that sort of gave you some insights where you were building it along those lines?
So yeah, I know, Scott, exactly what you're talking about, because for me, again, and now I recall that, yeah, I was working with Knockout JS as well back in time, way before I put my hands on React and Fluent UI, and I believe it was like one-way route, like went there, never will go back and try to do anything with the pure CSS and JavaScript.
Yeah.
Definitely. The interesting thing that I found, that it seems that the Canvas apps framework, if you will, itself works in the perfect way. So yeah, it seems that the framework was written in a way that every single time something is changed underneath, the whole collection is changed again. So it basically, in JavaScript concept, instead of changing something inside collection, it just clones the collection, change the object, the property inside wherever, and then reassigns. So basically it makes the binding trigger and reevaluate all the stuff that is dependent on it. So it seems that it is already written in this way. At least I was not able to find a way to, if I'm changing even something underneath, not to show the change.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because so making sure that there's always that it's an immutable object, basically, so that when you mutate that, it creates a new instance of it, which then creates an event that you can then respond to, which is quite different to the way in which a JavaScript object would behave. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Because in Knockout JS, you always have to wrap up your objects as an observable object, and there's when you, I don't know if you remember, but you pass in a flag to say that it will then do a deep observable clone, so that all of the child properties of that object will also become observables as well. So that if you do change any of those child components, values, then it will obviously trigger a change as well. But you don't have that problem in PowerFx, because if you change anything, it's going to create a new instance of it, and therefore the variable is going to change. So it, like you say, it just seems to just work really, really well.
Exactly.
It still hurts my head though. Imperative programming still hurts my head. Like, it's still the exact opposite of what I want to do. I want to set a variable to some value, but instead I'm like declaring the function that creates the value that I want, and then I refer to the function if I need to everywhere else. Like, it's still like I have to stop myself. Like, nope, I need to go the other way around. I need to think about it the other way
and
around.
it's like Andrew, you say it's like Excel. I think Joel's basically, that really is so true. Thinking about it as an Excel spreadsheet, because an Excel spreadsheet is declarative, pure declarative. Well, unless you start to include, VBA or some, Lambda.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think even Lambda
right.
components, even Lambda expressions, they're declarative as well, because you're creating an expression that is a function which has got observables on it. So when any of those observables change, it reevaluates. And I always think about it as saying, well, if you want to think about the benefits of declarative programming, imagine if you've got a complex Excel spreadsheet and you wanted to program that. You take some, you've seen these Excel spreadsheets that accountants create, right? Just you mind-bendingly, think how can you even comprehend what it's doing? Like hidden sheets and cells and all sorts of complex, cascading calculations going on, and then pivot tables, and then those pivot tables are then used as inputs to other cells that, and so if you were to try and actually implement that as a kind of an imperative, let's start at the top and do all of those calculations, think how long it would take to do a reevaluation, because you'd have to go through all of the calculations every single time, even just a tiny little change happens. Whereas if you think about an Excel spreadsheet, it's lightning fast. And the reason it's lightning fast is it knows the dependency tree. It knows if you change that one cell, it knows exactly all the other different things that need to be reevaluated and in what order as well. So it only needs to do the changes that it really needs to.
Agreed. So going back to the debug screen, Andrew, I know, so you're late to the party, as you said. So did that app that you had have a debug screen, like kind of concept already, or not?
As far as I remember, and you know it for sure, there was no that screen.
Okay, yeah. So
unwilling the curtain. Me and Daryl, we are working on with the same customer, pretty much on the same project, but in the different streams. So that there was no debugging screen.
Oh, okay.
The inside track.
So I didn't realize that was the project you made it on, because we're actually working on two projects at once for different. Yeah, it's just interesting. So two separate companies. We actually are both on their payrolls. So anyway, it's just I've never had that experience before. Oh, you're on this project too. Oh, well, we're both on. Anyway, I digress. So the funny part that I have, so on that app, actually the one that Andrew knows about, actually, I was like, hey, we need to have the debug screen here, what Scott talked about at the beginning. I've always found that there's always a logo on the front screen, on the very first screen. It's always a logo. And so I've always used the on-click of the logo to go to the debug screen. So that way, if I'm actually using it within the actual, whatever it is, not within the studio, within the actual player, I can go to the debug screen and do stuff on there. And the primary thing I do on that is usually I impersonate another user, right? So check to see if you're an admin. If you're an admin, then you can go to debug screen and you can go through and it just change the impersonate another user, and then go see what their data is and see what they're seeing and be able to debug stuff. I found it to be very helpful. So I don't know if that's in your tool set or not, but I highly suggest doing something along those lines or giving it a shot, because it really makes life a lot easier on that aspect. But when it comes to and I think I just had my train derail. What I was going to say. It'll come back to me right when one of you guys are talking. I'll have to remember it again.
Everyone that's listening is just going, "Oh wow, what have you just said there?" And impersonating users, and wow, there's a lot of stuff going on there.
So you have a hidden Control Shift B to open up the watch window, right? Because I'm assuming anything like breakpoint for Control Shift B rather than Control Shift W, which
No,
like watch.
no,
B for
it's
Butenko.
actually B from Butenko. Yes, exactly.
I like it. I like that.
I actually have an idea, like for improvement, just to alter the combination, because the tool that I used, the control that I used for this, launching the screen after the particular set of fields is clicked, is configurable from inside the component that I use. So technically, I can expose another property and provide the possibility to put the particular configuration of fields of keys to be hit to show the debug screen. So technically, it might be exposed and configurable. But
okay.
Control Shift B was specifically for Butenko.
All right. So what another option you could do is do the Konami code as well. Have like an up, down, down, left, right, BA, like space enter or something. Like start. I've always wanted to put that in a business app. I haven't found a use where I can use the Konami code.
Wasn't that in Excel or something? Wasn't there a Microsoft product that was in? I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
I was thinking about IDDQD, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay.
You don't know what IDDQD is?
No, I don't.
Tell us.
I don't. I'm looking at it. I lost it now.
Come on, you are not. You were not playing Doom, the original one.
I played that way back in the day.
but no. Tell us about was that the cheat code?
It was the cheat code that gave you immortality. IDDQD, immortality. IDKFA was for the all weapon and full protection vest and helmet. So it seems that I was a gamer a while ago.
Maybe you were the gamer with the internet. I grew up on a farm. We didn't get the internet till later, so that was my issue.
I started playing way before the internet was a thing in Ukraine. Don't forget that I'm originally from Ukraine, so we were I believe 3, 4, 5 years late for party with internet as well.
I love that he says, "Don't forget that I'm Ukraine." But he's wearing a "Born in Ukraine" T-shirt, and he has a Ukrainian emblem hanging on his wall, glowing in bright yellow neon.
We're not going to forget it. No, there's no chance.
Sometimes I'm obtuse, not that obtuse, Andrew. Come on, man.
Yeah, and just listen to my accent. Which kind of accent is it? Definitely South Carolinian.
South Carolinian. I love that. That's a great shtick. I love that shtick.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about like those original kind of games and cheat codes and stuff, because I think there's a sort of like a generation of people that didn't grow up with all of those kind of things, and they just assumes that games have been like, these days they're so sophisticated and everything. But back then there was definitely you appreciated things more when you saw things. It's like, a game like Doom came out and you're like, wow, how did that happen? And you kind of naturally have that inquisitive mind, and you kind of want to work out what's going on. How do they manage to push that particular platform, the graphics card, to that extreme? How do they make those sounds? It's like, how do they store those samples on that, that tiny amount of space? What's their compression algorithm and all those sort of things? And it's that, but these days I think, you can't have that. It's almost like you can't have that inquisitive mind. I was playing the latest Lego Star Wars saga game on the Xbox with the kids last night, and I mean, I was trying to stop myself from getting distracted by it, like looking at the texture, like, oh wow, look at the texture on the ground there, and then you kind of got chopped by it, and it's like you take your mind off for too long. So there's so much detail and there's so much complexity that it's almost like you just it's a waste of time to try and wonder. It's like you just get immersed in it. You have to get immersed in it.
Always fun to get immersed in games. I remember watching or playing Myst back in the day. It was one of the first computer games I think we had on CD, and being like, "Whoa, look at the textures! That looks like wood," And like I looked at like a video of someone playing, I was like, "That looks like crap. What am I used to?" So I mean, we grew up on that stage and grew up in games like that, but we also grew up in a day where games had to be good enough for people to pay for it. Now that's not the case. Now games can just be really crappy, and they just make all their money through ads. And so that's been kind of the detriment to games in general. It's just, what do you do with all these crappy games that aren't fun to play because you got to ad every 5 seconds?
And it's also about the numbers game. It's like there's so many games coming out because they know that for every 20 games that they create, there's only going to be one that really sticks. Or maybe I don't even know what the ratio is. Maybe it's even more extreme than that, because you look at the App Store and these games coming out, it's like there's hundreds of them, aren't there? What's it, Farmsteads and Animal Crossing and all these little time. And I mean, for each one big one like that, there's tons and tons of other ones that just get made and then no one plays them and they just go away quietly.
And half the games have a hidden lottery system in it, and you end up playing the lottery system more than the game. Oh, I want to open the box, see if I got something, and you forget like the game, like that's supposed to be your reward, but at the end of the day, like you end up like that becomes the game's lottery things. It's just
I love that LinkedIn poll that you did, Andrew, recently about guess what I'm doing. What was the winning vote? Was what was it in the end?
Okay, let me demonstrate instead of saying it. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yes. For those people listening on the podcast that are not watching us on YouTube, Andrew is now holding up a fallout shelter. Yes, was it Fallout Shelter 4?
So always, no, it was Shelter 76.
Yeah.
So always when you're ordering something from Amazon, always recheck the linear sizes, because here you might see that I'm a huge fan of these Funko Pop figures with all the like heroes or anti-heroes that I really like from multiple worlds. So long story short, I watched the Fallout TV show a few weeks back. It was amazing. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's just brilliant, especially if you're a fan of Fallout world, and just check it out. It's amazing. So I went up, first thing I did after I finished the first season, I went online and I decided to order one of those figures. I realized that Funka Pop something, they don't have the cool status, but I found from other brands. Yes. And I didn't check the linear size. I really wanted it to be big like this. So when it arrives, like I get the box like this, like what is it? Did I get like 7, 8 of those? I'm unpacking and I'm getting this huge one. So now it will just stand in front of me and it will always show me that I'm the best.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hey, work. Yes, Voltec. It just worked for Volt. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else we need to talk about today, Andrew? Anything else that you have done that you're comfortable to share about, as opposed to some of the things that we are excited to see you doing, but no, it's not quite there yet?
Okay. The next step, actually, what I asked the poll was like with the two real answers, and the second real answer was that. After I started working with PowerFx and I realized how cool is it, and seeing Microsoft is making investments in bringing PowerFx into model-driven world. So we see that we have now calculated fields that are like formula fields. We have the command bar fields that works with formulas and with context. I started, and after we went to Summit, and someone during the Summit specifically asked, do you plan to bring PowerFX into model-driven apps world, specifically for forms? because we still have events, validations, and stuff that is happening over there. Answer, as far as I remember, we have it on the roadmap, but we are not sure when. So yes, and I decided, okay, if Microsoft is not doing it, so I can give it a shot and try to implement myself. So yeah, the long story short, what I'm trying to achieve, but it's still even not halfway there, is the possibility to replace the JavaScript that we all love, JavaScript for forms, with PowerFx formulas.
Yeah, which would be fantastic. I mean, it's like you say with the command bar, it makes so much of a difference there. It makes it so much easier to do things, straightforward things, and then some more complicated stuff as well. Patching, creating child records, and retrieving other data and stuff. So yeah, I think it sounds like a very exciting project, and I think we'll get a lot of interest. So definitely, all of our listeners watch that space. I think is probably the key. Yeah, right, Andrew?
Which space?
Your space, right? We're going to go back to MySpace.
MySpace.
Like, remember MySpace? Remember MySpace?
No. I went directly to Facebook, so I never was part of MySpace.
Oh dear me! Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got an image of a MySpace page I used to have a long time ago, somewhere squirreled away. I have to see if I can find it.
Never had a MySpace place. I had a GeoCities.
GeoCities, wow, yes.
Where I had a page on how to beat Dragon Warrior 4 for the Nintendo. Yeah. So
they got bought by Yahoo, didn't they? I think GeoCities didn't they?
I think so.
And then and then we all know what happened to Yahoo. So maybe it's almost like we could dedicate an entire podcast to stuff that we remember that people just kind of not really that interested in hearing about. It's like
here's the stuff we really care about that no one else does.
Here's the stuff that we want to
back in my day episode,
but we don't necessarily want to enforce you to listen to it. We just get us all on, everyone on, and they can just everyone give their own little things about they want to geek out on for a little bit.
All right. Well, Andrew, anything else we should cover? We've gone through everything on the watch component. Is the actual full name Canvas App Watch PCF component, or is it just Watch PCF component? But you're titling your blog post as
it's a good question. To be honest, I don't remember. Let me check the Git repository, because to be honest, I don't remember.
Of all truth, the Git repository.
Yes, exactly. Okay. The project in my Git repo is called Canvas App Watch PCF. But how it will look like if you open it, I need to jump into manifest file because it's the source. Okay, it's called Canvas App Watch PCF.
All right.
Catchy.
Is the PCF capitalized? Is there a space between the watch and the PCF? I have to know these things. Because if I don't,
no.
Hunt me down and destroy me.
No space. No space.
All right. Capital P, lowercase cf, right? We're good there.
Yes, exactly. And the description key, you won't believe, but description for the component that I see in front of me, it's kind of confusing, but it's Canvas App Watch PCF space description.
Well, it does what it says on the tin. It's like,
I didn't invest a lot of time in it.
I had someone that made fun of me on the Level Up Discord channel. They posted one of my open source repositories, and there was a method like 4 or 5 variables parameters that came into the method, and the XML comments for it was just the exact name. Like that was it, and then whatever the name was, the first name, the last, and that was all it was. And they're like, I've never seen more descriptive comments before. I was like, hey, I'm just trying to avoid compilers.
Yes,
okay, this
exactly.
Yeah. It's not named the object. It's named the first thing, the last thing. At least you know what it is. You don't have to figure it out. But yeah, got me. That's not. It's not going to be on my tombstone. Daryl commented everything amazingly. Document everything. That will never be there for me. I never be there for me at all. So, all right. Well, Andrew, it was great hanging out with you, chatting with you. And thank you for once again developing a tool for everybody to use, not just pro coders. This is probably one of your few that actually crosses the platform into, hey, these are low coders that are wanting to get more info out of their app as well. So it's great. It's great. If our listeners want to get hold of you and maybe suggest something that they want to see you add to it, or just talk to you about Fallout, how do they get a hold of you?
So I would say if you have ideas, definitely you can contact me. You try using GitHub, but the best way is try to find me on the LinkedIn or on Twitter, because I always recheck those two feeds and try not to leave any questions or requests alone. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Scott, that's how our listeners can contact our guest. How can our listeners get a hold of us?
Well, yes, Daryl, you can attract our attention through a number of different routes. So cast at xrmtoolbox.com via email, and at xrmtoolcast on LinkedIn, Twitter, X, and just leave a comment on our YouTube channel if you enjoyed this show, or if you want to hear any more from Andrew about other projects, because we didn't kind of do the kind of proper introduction really of Andrew. I mean, I'd encourage everyone to go over to your LinkedIn page and see all of the amazing stuff you've done, because you've been on the show multiple times before. So we kind of know you so well, and it's so amazing to talk to you. But yeah, so for those listeners who haven't seen those shows, go and watch the previous shows that Andrew's been on, because he's done some amazing stuff in the past, and check out his GitHub page as well for the other projects. But it's been a real pleasure, Andrew, and it's always so good to talk to you.
It's always good to hear your South Carolina accent too. I live in California, so I think you're losing it a little bit. So I'm kind of saddened by that, but
it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right, have a good time, guys. See you later. Bye.
See you later, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
This has been the XRM Toolcast with Daryl Labar and Scott Durrell, produced by Lynn Zawin. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to cast@xrmtoolbox.com, tweet @XRM Toolcast, or hit us up on our LinkedIn XRM Toolcast page.